We gave you quarterbacks, we gave you running backs, we've given you wide receivers, and of course, we're not going to leave out the tight end positions. We are updating you going into week 10 of the fantasy football season, so definitely keep that in mind that a lot of things could change as the season goes along, or maybe whenever you are watching this video. So let's not waste any more time. Zach, take us to your first tier, brother.
I don't think there's a more difficult position to rank in Dynasty right now than the tight end position.
Okay.
And as I'm trying to go through my tiers, I'm saying to myself, like, man, I think you can make a case for like 4 to 5 to 6 tight ends to be the tight end one in Dynasty.
Right.
So there'll be lots of conversation to have. What I've ultimately landed on as my tight end one right now, that is Sam Laporta. But Aki, you loved Sam Laporta coming into the draft. I don't think even you would have expected this start, but you definitely loved him. And for people who were, with Badaki on that train, you probably drafted a lot of him, and you're feeling pretty good about that right now in Dynasty. Now, keep in mind, guys, Sam Laporta is on track to break the rookie reception record currently by 10. He's on track to get 91 receptions this year. The rookie record is 81 by Keith Jackson in 1988 with the Philadelphia Eagles. He's not currently on track to break the receiving record. That is Mike Ditka's record in 1961 with 1.1 thousand receiving yards. However, he is on track to hit at least 900.
Right.
So with the historic start, with what he means to this offense, it's difficult to not have Laporta as a tight end one, because it's not like if you're competing, it's like, well, if you're competing, you don't want the guy yet. I mean, no, this is a top 4 tight end in redraft leagues right now. So the tight end one at the moment, you could also make a case for Mark Andrews.
Yep.
He has been playing really, really well. He's clearly the number one option there in what is an offense that is passing the ball more. They just haven't been in games where they've needed to pass the ball more. So that's been a little bit of an issue for those pass catchers. I think you can also make a case for Dalton Kincaid. Ooh. I would not be surprised at all if by the end of the year, Dalton Kincaid is the tight end one in Dynasty, because the situation is a little bit more intriguing than Sam Laporta's. Not by much, but just purely the quarterback you're connected to and the offense you are connected to. In Detroit, it's going to be a little bit more efficiency. You might get less receptions, but the offense is arguably better at this point. But in Buffalo, this could legitimately be the number 2 option on a consistent basis for Josh Allen moving forward. You can see that Dalton Kincaid is doing things that Dawson Knox could never dream to do. The toe tap touches, the contested catches, the way he's moving, how he's getting open, his suddenness on his routes, that is just not something that Dawson Knox is going to give you. And I don't believe that when Knox is back, we're going to see a situation where Kincaid's role is decreased. I think he has proven, like, this is why you took me in the first round.
Yeah.
So there's a case with the amount of passing attempts. Like, that is a pass-happy offense over there in Buffalo, and there is a good chance that Dalton Kincaid could end up being the tight end one by the end of the year. But we have to give some respect to Laporta with the way that he started his career. Obviously, Laporta he started as a starter. What would have happened if Knox was injured to begin the year? I mean, I don't know what conversations we would be having. I did prefer Kincaid as a prospect as well, so maybe that's a little bit of bias coming in. But you could also make a case for TJ Hawkinson, because TJ Hawkinson has been fantastic, and I have a feeling that Kirk Cousins is going to be back. I don't know where they stand on that. At the moment, Kirk Cousins will be a free agent, and this team just brought in Josh Dobbs, signaling that they're going to try and compete. I think they'll win enough games to the point where they're not in contention for one of the top quarterbacks. And you can see this team is in love with Kirk Cousins, dude. I mean, this team misses him. They love him. He's a leader. They're wearing shirts of his to commemorate him, if you will. The coaching staff loves him. He was playing at an MVP level. That's not just hyperbole. He was playing at an MVP level. And, I mean, why not bring the guy back? He's been playing really well. Regardless, Hawkinson is super safe. We just saw him with Josh Dobbs put up a pretty big week.
Yeah.
You could also make a case for Travis Kelce.
Oh, boy.
A lot of people are going to have Travis Kelce still as the tight end one in Dynasty. And I don't think that's crazy. I don't think you're wrong for saying that. What I will say is if any of these guys have an expiration date,
it is Travis.
Kelce is the one that has the closest of those expiration dates. Now, that doesn't mean that he's not going to be valuable. if you're competing right now, Badaki, there's not a tight end you want more than Travis Kelce, right? I mean, we could all agree on that.
Yeah.
But we also have to put respect on these young rookies who are breaking records. We also have to put respect on Mark Andrews. Again, any one of these guys could be your tight end one. That is what is so difficult about the tight end position right now. So, and by the way, me ranking Kelce here has nothing to do with his game in Germany. I just think that's an outlier. I still think he's going to be. If I was in a redraft league right now, I would trade any of these guys for Travis Kelce. I think we all agree. If we're competing, he's the number one guy to have. So
yeah, look,
that's the first tier. I like. How do you put these guys in different tiers? Honestly.
It makes sense. Yes, I was big on the Porter train coming in. I love that he's tight end one. You know, one of the things that I think a lot of people were talking about was, you know, the workload that they were scared that he wasn't going to, or skeptical because of when Jameson does come back. But, you know, Jameson has been back, actually came back earlier, and he's still leading in targets and receptions and snap percentages as well. So I think in the long term, it really just makes us question what's going to happen with Jameson Williams long term rather than Sam Laporta. It feels like Sam Laporta is clearly the number 2 favorite when it comes down to Jared Goff. And we also have to understand that Jared Goff is most likely going to get extended as well with the Detroit Lions. These guys are competing. They've been the best they've ever been, I would say, since Matthew Stafford, 6-2 right now. I don't even think Matthew Stafford had, I think there's only one winning season, if I'm not mistaken, Matthew Stafford had in Detroit. But Jared Goff, he's doing phenomenal things. And yeah, Dalton Kincaid, man, if he could have been up there earlier. But look, love the tier, love everyone else here. It all makes sense. I would say this. One thing with TJ Hawkinson, it is incredible that he can still be right now, currently, as we're recording this, tight end 2 in the season. That was with Justin Jefferson going off in the first half of the season. That was with Jordan Addison also taking off in the first half of the season.
Addison wasn't a full-time player.
He wasn't a full-time player, but even then, you can see how he is still relevant with Justin Jefferson, with Jordan Addison, with both of them as well on the team. Yeah. So I think he is very safe.
He does lead tight ends in targets, but you have to keep in mind Kelce didn't play in the first week, so on average, Kelce probably beats him out there.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, the thing is, Kelce is still the only one who's averaging over 17 points per game.
17.6.
So you know, we can't really devalue him too much because of age.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Not trying to.
It's tough, man.
It is tough. All right, take us to your tier 1B.
Yes,
I can see.
tier 1B. And the reason I put 1B is because I didn't want to disrespect this player. And
one player.
This is I just think all of us are on the same page, regardless of what you think about, regardless who you cheer for as an NFL team, regardless who you have on your dynasty roster. I think we could all agree we have all been impacted by Arthur Smith Gate. I mean, we have all negatively been impacted by his presence in the National Football League. Can we agree?
100%.
I think that's all of us. I will put Kyle Pitts as 1B because there is genuinely no doubt in my mind. If you replace Kyle Pitts with any one of those names up there in tier 1, the guy is the tight end 1 in Dynasty. Genuinely. I have no doubts. You put him in Detroit, put Laporta in Atlanta. It's different, right? You put him in Baltimore, put Mark in Atlanta. It's different. We're frustrated with Mark's usage. Name any tight end there up at the top, replace him with Kyle Pitts' situation, and Kyle Pitts is potentially the tight end 1, if not top 3 locked and loaded. We know how talented he is. We know how good he is at running routes. We know how explosive he is in the open field. We also know that Arthur Smith believes he is smarter than anyone else on the planet. And he wants to use Jonnu Smith. He wants to use Tyler Algier. And he wants to win the game than to belittle you in the press conference. I genuinely believe this guy is going to lose his job because he wants to prove a point. And, Badaki, there's never been a time in my life, like we've made jokes like, oh, this coach clearly doesn't like this guy. This coach is doing it to hate on fantasy players. This is genuinely the first time in my life playing fantasy, 15 to 20 years, where I've actually genuinely believed that the head coach is genuinely trying to prove a point and not utilizing their players the way that everyone else wants them to. Do you know what I mean? and
I get
saying,
you.
I'm smarter than you.
I get you.
And the issue is that the Falcons are going to win enough games to be out of contention.
Right.
But I don't see Arthur Smith keeping that job forever for the length of Kyle Pitts' contract. I think Kyle Pitts outlasts Arthur Smith, and I think a new quarterback will come in here at some point. Clearly, Desmond's not the guy. Clearly, Taylor Heineke is not going to be the guy either. But you got names that can come up like Gardner Minshew soon. Maybe Kirk Cousins doesn't return to Atlanta. Kirk Cousins will be the perfect fit or to Minnesota. Maybe he would be the perfect fit there.
Right.
So there's plenty of names that you can kind of cycle through your mind. But all it takes is a coaching change. And honestly, maybe just that would do the trick for you. But yeah, so I want to put respect on his name. You know, he had an incredible rookie year. That was when he had a competent quarterback in Matt Ryan. That's when, you know, that offense was funneling not strictly through the run game. So still a player I love, and we can't forget what he did in his rookie year. We really can't. Like, you know, Dynasty, it's hard to not completely devalue a player who's underperformed because of the situation, but still, the guy is second in receiving yards amongst rookies, 110 targets in his rookie year, and he has looked good as he's getting more and more healthy. And I think that part is being under-discussed, how he was not himself for the first 6, 7, 8 weeks of the season. So, yeah, I'll put Kyle Pitts there on his own, by the way.
I get that. Look, I'm not disagreeing with Kyle Pitts. I think the talent is there. My question as a Dynasty player is like, do I want to take a chance on Kyle Pitts hoping that Arthur Smith, let's just say they finish the season even this year. What's that, 9-9, right? They can finish the season at 9-9 or 10.
Well, 9-8.
9-8, sorry. 9-8. You know, I don't think he's going to lose his job unless they go on a massive losing streak long term, and I don't think that's going to change even if going into next year.
Sure.
They do have a pretty good team overall. They have a decent defense. They have a lot of weapons in the offensive side of the ball, and I would agree. Maybe the quarterback does help him. But am I willing to take a chance? I think not me. I'm asking everyone else. Are you willing to take a chance on Kyle Pitts in hopes that his situation is going to change? Or could you reach a little bit for someone like a TJ, for someone like a Dalton Kincaid, that we know what they're, well, maybe not TJ specifically, but someone like a Dalton Kincaid, and hope that, you know, I have Josh Allen for the long term. I have Dalton Kincaid for the long term. Obviously, they're in different tiers. But I was
going to say, I don't imagine anyone would trade for Kyle Pitts and send those names away, though.
No, and I completely
don't think anyone's
understand
sending any of those guys in tier 1 for Kyle Pitts.
I know, but I think, like, if you are really concerned about a tight end, I don't know if I'm still drafting Kyle Pitts in that middle tier in the same way that we are hoping with the talent that he is. Like, that is so hard to, like, he can be the reason why your season is done for early and often, if not saying because of him, because of the way he's being utilized because of Arthur Smith, right? Okay. I think the talent is there, but if Arthur Smith is here for another year going into next year and you're a competing team, I'm trying to figure out a way maybe I can pivot off of Kyle Pitts to maybe somebody else.
I think if you pivot off him, the guys in tier 1 are not realistic, and that's where I'm
and that's
struggling to follow. Mm-hmm. I mean, are there guys that are not listed that you'd rather pivot to then?
Because absolutely.
That would be a realistic option, but
100%.
No one is sitting those guys in tier 1 for Kyle Pitts.
No, and I agree. I was just using those guys as an example because I didn't want to get into your next tier too early, which we can do now, so we can talk about it.
Let's go ahead and dive into it, and I guess we can see if there's anyone. George Kittle would be in this tier. You know, up and down, inconsistent, as is the tight end position. Dallas Goedert, who had been playing well, unfortunately, the injury is going to set him back a little bit. This is where I would put Trey McBride, and it's a little bit of a projection here with Kyler Murray stepping in. Zach Ertz on IR. I know he's not going to be out for the entire year, but I believe Trey McBride will establish himself with Kyler Murray as a starting quarterback. We know what Kyler Murray has done with his tight ends in the past. We've seen Trey McBride in his breakout game a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
There's an alarm. You can't really you can't really fault him for last week. I think if anyone watched that Cardinals-Browns game, you could see why Trey McBride wasn't involved.
Yep, makes sense.
So, yeah, it's a little bit of a projection there. Evan Ingram, I would have here. Michael Mayer, I would have here. Luke Musgrave, and then one Jake Ferguson, who is playing really well. Jake Ferguson was one of my biggest taxi stashes. Not last draft, but the draft before that. Had him on so many taxi squads, so it's awesome to see him playing really, really well. He pretty much was the same profile as Dalton Schultz. We talked about that on the channel.
Yeah.
But as far as Luke Musgrave and Michael Mayer go, to me, I like their talents. It's just, it's very difficult to figure out how they thrive for fantasy at this very moment with the other options around them in the offense, with the quarterback play, with the offenses as a whole. So those guys, you know, maybe if Michael Mayer was in Detroit, it would look very different for him. I'm sure it would, but that's not the situation that we currently land on. So I personally would not pivot off of Kyle Pitts like straight up for any of the names in tier 3. But are you saying that you would?
I think there are two names I would pivot to based off their production from what we've seen so far this year. You know, obviously in a perfect world, you hope both of these guys can stay healthy. That is Dallas Goedert and Evan Ingram. I think they're pretty vital to their offense, even though there's a lot of other mouths to feed there. Kyle Pitts is not the focal point of this offense, and I would pivot however that looks like. You know, if I'm in a win-now situation, obviously if you're rebuilding, you're younger, there's no point of pivoting to Dallas or Evan Ingram. I'm just talking a specific scenario. You're a win-now team. You have Kyle Pitts. I understand. You got a young tight end hoping that he was going to perform. That's not the case. Dallas Goedert, if he was healthy, he would have 100% put up those points for you. You know, tight end 8 going into week 10. Evan Ingram, tight end 7 going into week 10 of the fantasy football season. And you hope that these guys continue. You know, is Kyle really going to stay here for the foreseeable future? We just don't know. So I think those are the different scenarios that I wanted to kind of bring up if I was in a win now scenario and I had a Kyle
I think
Pitts.
that makes sense. I think you need more than a straight trade.
I would agree. It's not like a 1-for-1. Obviously, in the trade world, maybe throw something in a little bit to make it sweeter for the Kyle Pitts owner. Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I think you need a little bit more thrown in. I mean, for example, in one of our home leagues, I think it was India, I can't remember, but we have the NATO alphabet for our follower leagues rather in Dynasty. And there was a scenario where I did trade Kyle Pitts away, but it was Kyle Pitts for Ingram and a couple firsts. So like in that scenario, that makes sense. But I don't like the idea of a straight swap necessarily for any of those guys.
Yeah, and that makes
in tier
sense.
3. And you know, as good as Evan Ingram was, or as Dallas Goedert was, you know, you mentioned I'll just like counterpoint here. You mentioned that Kyle Pitts is not the focal point of his offense. I don't think Dallas Goedert is, and I don't think Evan Ingram is either. But I do think they are more consistent right now for fantasy because of the situation they're in. You know, you look at Dallas Goedert rather, his first 4 weeks, only 1 week inside the top 15, and it's been pretty inconsistent. But that is the tight end position as well, so we can't fault him too much. Evan Ingram probably means more to his offense than any of those 3 names. But yeah, I can see how there's a case depending on the context and the return that you would get. So, but yeah. Is there anyone in this tier that we want to like talk on before we move on?
I think there is the only one I would want to talk about are the 2 rookie tight ends, you know, Michael Mayer and Luke Musgrave. Really quick in a scenario, I feel like Luke Musgrave is going to have a new quarterback next year. I think that if the Green Bay Packers continue to play this way, they will have a top 7, top 10 pick in the NFL draft, and I will not be surprised if they do move up in this draft. And Michael Mayer, it just depends on what's going to happen in the future with Aiden O'Connell, who's going to be the new head coach, who's going to be the new GM, because if they also continue to lose games, they can also be in contention for a quarterback here, and that can really help Michael Mayer. So I'm projecting more towards that.
That report that the Raiders almost traded up for C.J. Stroud. I don't know if you
I saw
remember reading that. That would have been awesome.
They wanted a quarterback, and this quarterback class is deep. You know, I mean, I don't know if they have the capability.
Oh yeah, they clearly don't have their answer at quarterback.
Yeah, I mean Caleb Williams, Drake May, Michael Penix, you know, the list goes on.
I would not be surprised if Devontae is moved, but yeah, you know, the funny thing with Mayer, like the thing is, Mayer and Musgrave have been kind of what we expect from the tight end position historically. Slow starts, not reliable as a starter yet. Not someone you're putting in your starting lineup if you're competing. Whereas Laporta and Kincaid have been like the outliers historically. You know, you look at the last 20 years, it is like less than 1% chance that happens, that kind of outcome. So it's kind of funny because you see two sides of the
fact
of the tight end landscape as rookies. So it's a very difficult position to rank, like I mentioned.
All right, take us to your tier 4 here.
Okay, tier 4. Let's give some love. Before the year, I said there was 4 tight ends that I could see leading their team in targets. One was Andrews, one was Kelsey, one was Hawkinson. No, sorry, not Hawkinson. One was one was Waller, sorry, and the other was Dalton Schultz. Now, it started off rough, but Dalton Schultz is starting to get more and more involved. He was the tight end 1 last week in week 9, but he's had good games before that as well. In weeks 4, 5, and 6, all those weeks he was a top 6 tight end, including a tight end 2 finish. He is getting involved. I don't see a reason why you wouldn't extend him in this offense. He feels like a pretty perfect fit for the young quarterback, a reliable target. So this is a tight end now where if you bought him in the offseason, like I suggested, it might have been really rough to start. But now, finally, hopefully, you are putting him into your starting lineup and it's looking decent for you. So we'll put Dalton Schultz there. I hope he gets extended because that could really boost his value. That's the only reason he's not higher in tier 3 than the likes of like a Mayer.
Okay.
Pat Freiermuth. This is a difficult name to discuss because if you drafted Pat Freiermuth anywhere, if he was your starting tight end in Dynasty, you're likely struggling a little bit. He has just not been involved in the offense. He's been injured. The games where he's been healthy, he hasn't seen a game over 4 targets this year. He's only played 4 games, but still, even when he was healthy, it was like, where are the targets? Now, I believe he's a very talented tight end. I believe he will be an integral part of this offense. Mm-hmm. But at the moment, you absolutely do have to have at least some question marks on his value, on his ability to be a starting option for you. I will put Cole Kmet in there. Cole Kmet, it's like... It's very difficult to know when to start Cole Kmet, based off quarterback play, based off matchup. Sometimes it'll be a good matchup and he'll fall on his face. Sometimes it'll be a bad matchup and he absolutely blows up. What is happening with Justin Fields? There's so many questions that you could ask yourself. David Njoku here, I believe he could be a very good fantasy tight end, but he's just not the focal point of an offense ever. I'll put Darren Waller here. He's still in his Raiders uni. And then we'll put Cade Otton to finish. Cade Otton is maybe a name that some people would be upset isn't necessarily higher. That's only been because of recent performances, though. I mean, from weeks 1 to 8, he's averaging, tight end 20 finish pretty much. But last week, the 2 touchdown performance finishes, I believe, as the tight end 3 on the week. And he's getting more and more targets. The issue with Cade Otton is, at what point, if ever, does he become the focal point of that offense with Godwin, with Evans there? Mm-hmm. And maybe Evans moves on, and that opens up, a great opportunity for him to succeed. But I just don't feel like anyone who has Cade Otton feels secure at the tight end position. Okay. So that's my tight end 4.
Okay.
Or my tier 4.
Your tier 4. No, that makes sense. I think the one person there's 2 people I want to talk about here, and it's Pat Freiermuth and Cole Kmet. Yeah, it's been very frustrating. I think you kind of mentioned it with Pat Freiermuth, Pat the Dragon here. You hope that you can see a better second half when he does come back from IR and whatever that looks like, but it looks very, very in question, especially the way Kenny Pickett is being utilized. But I think these guys fire on all cylinders when Deontay Johnson is back. I mean, you see how this offense looks a little bit better with Deontay Johnson in, and they obviously have been missing him. So I'm really interested to see how Pat Freiermuth performs with Deontay, with George Pickens and Kenny Pickett, because they just haven't had all their pieces there together. My next guy that I actually have in my tier 3 ahead of someone of the likes like Michael Mayer and Luke Musgrave, actually, and that is Cole Kmet. Okay. And maybe this is a bit of projection as well, but we have to understand that this Bears team is most likely going to draft a quarterback. Whether that is Drake May, whether that is Caleb Williams, and Cole Kmet is the long-term tight end in this position. They did extend him. He has a contract, if I'm not mistaken, all the way until 2027. Obviously, they do have outs in between that. But, you think about, you think about who has been the second target in this offense. Right? It's
Sure.
DJ Moore and Cole Kmet. Darnell Mooney is most likely going to walk away. My only caveat here is if they do get a quarterback, let's just say they do the 1-2 punch. They get Caleb Williams and then Marvin Harrison.
Exactly.
With DJ Moore, that is going to hurt.
That's what I feel like is inevitable. I don't think that you look at building a team and say to yourself, Cole Kmet is a fine second option. Like, he will be the reason we make the playoffs.
Sure.
Or be successful. You know,
and
that's
I completely
where
understand.
my issue lies.
I completely understand, and obviously, I think it all depends on how Carolina produces. Like, Carolina can go on a 4-win streak at some point in time, or just win another 4 games, and they won't have the top 3 picks or top 2 picks in the NFL draft. So a lot of things could change as the season goes on. But if that is the case, let's just say this. Maybe it's better for me to say that I have Cole Kmet in my tier 3 if only one of their top 2 picks are in the top 3.
Yeah, that's tough because we have to.
I know. We have to make decisions now, and I do have him now, and I think like obviously things are going to change, and I think genuinely a lot of things probably will change as the season goes on. But that's probably the only thing for me in this tier. I do believe Cole Kmet top 5 tight end. We saw him be a top 8 tight end last year as well, having big league winning type games. I mean, 23, 17, 14, 27. When he gets targeted, he gets targeted. 10 targets, 8 targets, 9 targets. He gets those points when you do. But yes, he could have a 23-point game to a 2-point game, and that is the tight end position there. So I understand when it comes down to this tier.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely hear you. My concern, like I said, is just that he is not actually the second option ideally for them long term. Mm-hmm. But I definitely hear what you're saying. All right, so tier 5 is kind of disgusting.
Yeah, it gets really nasty here.
Honestly, it kind of gets nasty in tier 4, but it gets real nasty. It gets stanky in tier 5. But a name I do want to highlight is Greg Dulcich. I think he's a fine buy low right now. Has not been able to stay healthy, but we have seen the receiving threat that he's been when he is healthy. So he's someone I would consider buying right now. Chigakonkwo, for all the hopes that we had for him, maybe Will Levis is the reason it turns around. Maybe.
Come on, baby.
But it is frustrating to see a very talented player not get many opportunities. Now it gets gross. Even more gross. Even more stanky. Jonnu Smith. I'm gonna whisper these ones because I don't even want to. Tyler. Hunter. I don't want anyone to really hear what I'm saying right now. Gerald Everett. That's terrible. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
It is gross if you have one of these guys starting for you right now.
Yeah, I mean, look, let's not waste any time here. All of these guys, if you have one of these guys, you're hopefully pivoting to a tight end here, trying to build, maybe you do send a first for Kyle Pitts or whatever that looks like, or maybe you do send some sort of big package for one of those tier 2 to tier 3 type of guys to trying to get your tight end of the future. Obviously, these guys are probably going to help you here and there, very inconsistent, but yeah, let's not waste any time here. I understand Greg Dulcich. I think I'm kind of going to do away with him. I think everyone here in the tier 5 is like, I don't see a pathway of success in the near future. I would say there is one, and that would be Chig if Will does turn it around. But everyone else is like quarterback change.
Yeah.
The 4th option on their offense. They're going in different directions and things like that. So their team can get blown up. All these teams, you think of the Broncos getting blown up. You think of the Patriots. You think of, the Washington getting blown up. Matthew Stafford, how long he's going to be here for. So many questions in this tier 5. So I get it. Sure. I get it. Take us to your next tier.
All right, tier 6. Let's just go through this as well. Taysom Hill, who, you can start if you're competing, but it's not fun. Dawson Knox, Jelani Woods, Daniel Bellinger, the old Belland, and Isaiah Likely. Again, none of these guys you should feel any confidence in being your tight end of the future, in my opinion.
Yeah, completely agree. Obviously, Taysom Hill is the only one at the moment in the fantasy relevant world, top 9 tight end currently so far going into week 10. Everyone else is kind of irrelevant here. So love the tiers though. Good conversations in the top tiers.
Yeah, it is so hard to rank tight ends right now.
And there's not that big of a tight end class coming in next year. That's the thing. Like,
there is two big names that I really love.
Yeah,
Obviously, Brock Bowers is huge.
Exactly.
He will probably be in tier 1 instantly. And then Jatavion Sanders is pretty legit in my opinion as a pass catcher.
And I think that's where it's going to keep these middle tier guys, like the tier 4 guys, safe. Potentially,
unless one of those names goes to them
to that team. Yeah, I would agree, but I think
like if the Giants draft Brock Bowers, Darren Waller, it's over.
Oh,
if the Bears Cole Kmet is over. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think you hope that. I mean, I can see the Texans the way they're playing. Getting someone like a Brock Bowers, I don't think he gets out of the top 10.
I don't think they have an early enough pick.
Yeah,
with, the Browns pick there.
Yeah,
so.
he could be. There's actually so many ways this can go, but yes.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, love the list, brother.
It's hard, and if anyone is like aggressively angry at one of these, I just feel like. Make a video, and show us your tight end ranking because it's hard,
Yeah,
it is not
I agree.
easy.
I agree.
Genuinely tag us in it because I want to see how other people are ranking tight ends right now because it is not an easy exercise right now. But I'm curious what people think. But hit the like button for us to show some love. Subscribe if you like Dynasty content. You guys probably know this by now, but all of our updated Dynasty rankings are over on the Flock Fantasy website. From Superflex to one quarterback. You can go check all that out. We will have 2024 NFL draft content coming soon to the channel.
Oh, can't wait.
But again, if you want to access our rankings over on the Flock Fantasy website, if you want us to break down one of your Dynasty teams, then head to flockfantasy.com/land. Use our promo code LAND when signing up. Choose that top mother flocker tier. And DM us. We'll get you all set up. But that's it, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you very soon. Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, L-A-N-D, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.
It's so easy. Even your grandma could scan that QR code right there.